Hi, this is Mark Baer. Welcome to YourTown television program. I'm your host tonight, and every third Tuesday of the month. Tonight, my first guest is Terri DeBono, Steve Rosen, Macaneva Productions. Welcome, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
So you guys have been together since UCLA Film School. Because there's a I know you from around town, and I keep thinking you've been together so long. You've been together more than most married people, but you're not married. You're working partners.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's go back to UCLA.
Okay. Well, actually, we didn't know each other at UCLA, and we haven't been together. There was a 12-year interim period between the time we got out of UCLA and the time we started working together. We were both here on the peninsula, but we didn't know each other well. I mean, we sort of.
Well, you were in film, and I was in theater.
Yeah.
So we were in two different buildings
Even though
on the campus.
They're both parts of the theater arts department. It's like never the twain shall meet unless the film people happen to be making a film using actors from the theater department, in which case, there is. But Terry was married during directing, so.
Yeah.
We didn't meet.
No, didn't know him until we got up here.
But we both came up here about the same time. I came up here to do my graduate thesis film, and Terry came up here because she was married to Peter DeBono, who was taking over the theater at MPC. And I made a film in the early 70s with Peter, and that's when I first met Terry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. And then,
but our company, we have been working together for, 27 years, I think. That is a
and then a couple of years before that, because we worked for another company before that and decided to stop doing that and start our own. So.
And so I guess one of the things that I find so fascinating about your work, especially your documentary work, is you tend not to have a written narrative. You have a rolling interview narrative. You let people tell your story and tell the story for themselves rather than you imposing your own point of view on it, or seemingly not to impose your own point of view.
It's a hard style, but it's always been Steve's style of filmmaking, and so it was incorporated into our style. And it's harder because you want them to say something, and you can't get them to say exactly what you want, so you keep asking more questions and more questions. And usually you get a lot of personal stories that way, and that has become a part of what we try to do, is to make the person available to the audience like they're their friend.
Yeah, when I was at UCLA, I saw a couple of films that had been made that way, and of course, I was at UCLA in the late 60s, and at that time, almost every documentary you ever saw had, disimpassioned, narrators, usually very good narrators, but narrators nevertheless. And I saw a film, I can't even remember now what it was, but I saw a film that had that was told entirely with interviews. And do you remember the technology didn't exist in the early 60s to do that? The portable tape recorder and all of that didn't really, come into being until the late 60s. So right when that technology became available, I became very interested in telling stories that way.
Okay, so let's do, just because we have a condensed time period,
Sure.
I want to go over some of the films that have been on PBS and some of your what you call you think are your standout achievements, and then let's go to current work.
Oh, okay.
I'll let you.
All right. Oh, okay. Probably when people in the community ask what we've done, the one film that they will know or recognize usually is Beyond Barbed Wire, and that had to do with the Japanese Americans that came out of internment camps to fight for this country, and they became the best or the most decorated military unit in American history, and a lot of them are local. And we've how many families? 55?
55 or 56 veterans in there, and their families are represented in the film. It started with a gentleman here named Yukio Sumida, who owns a nursery in Monterey. He's a well-known local businessman, and he's in his 90s now, still alive. And he came to us and told us the story of the 442nd and asked if we thought that there was a film there, and we said, sure, you know. And
We looked at each other, we both said we're graduates of UCLA, and neither of us knew the story.
Wow.
yeah, I mean,
So
it
we
was-
said there's something missing here.
Yeah.
You know, people that our age and are, you know, fairly well educated, but did not know anything about the 442nd.
people often ask what the title Beyond Barbed Wire means, and it comes from a quote from a woman named Lynn, I can't remember, Croft, I think.
Croft.
Yeah, she was, you know, the term they use is embedded now, but anyway, she traveled with the 442nd, a woman, and reported on their activities during the war, during the Second World War. And she wrote a book about it, and at the end of her book, she wrote that they saw beyond the barbed wire to a better America. These men who volunteered from internment camps because they wanted to prove they were Americans. They didn't have to prove they were Americans because they were Americans, but they felt that they wanted to prove that they were American. They wanted people to know that America meant a lot to them. So.
Okay, let's show the first image right now, and we'll talk about some of the newer works. Okay, so this is from. This is the newest film, and let's talk about what we're looking at here.
Go ahead,
This is a film that actually originated in this area as well, called Boyhood Shadows. It's a documentary about male survivors of childhood sexual abuse. It's a tough subject. It started at the Monterey County Rape Crisis Center here locally, which was one of the few places in the country that had a group for male survivors.
Okay, what I'm going to do is let's look at this picture. Who is in these pictures? I'm going to give you show the three pictures, and then let's go back so that we can talk. Let's see the second one.
Okay, that's a different.
Oh, that's the mission. Okay. So this is, and so let's talk about this, and then we'll talk about both of these.
Okay.
All right. This film is, well, do you want to talk about the mission?
Well, this film is another one that's filmed sort of locally. It came about with locals, but it has to do with the mission that's down in near King City.
Islands in Time.
Yes.
Which is a beautiful movie, which I've seen now.
Yeah.
I saw it at the Carmel Festival, I saw it at the Museum of Monterey, and I saw an abridged version of it, which is also very powerful. So,
and he's a historian. He loves history and he loves archaeology. That was
my minor in college was archaeology and anthropology. So this was an opportunity for me to work with archaeologists and sort of, you know, look at the importance of what archaeology and history mean to us as a society. So
they're showing another of the pictures. Wait, so where are we exactly? And
okay,
now,
this is Boyhood Shadows
we're
again.
back to-
Okay, so let's.
We're in New York on that one.
Okay, you're in New York in this one. Let's run through the pictures, and then we'll go back and pick each of these subjects up. So let's see the next one.
Okay, that's Boyhood Shadows again. That's a guy who used to be a Monterey County sheriff. Then he was a Santa Cruz County sheriff, and he was abused when he was a child. He was also Mr. America. So.
He'd like us for throwing that one.
That's Island in Time, which is still a functioning church, although it is a historical building. It still functions as a church, and they still have Sunday Mass. And that's one of the archaeologists, Sarah Pilo, Dr. Sarah Pilo at the Mission San Antonio, which is.
She runs the program, that summer program where she basically is teaching archaeology, and the kids are doing digs on a real project.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're back to the first of the Boyhood Shadows.
Okay. So now let's start with the Boyhood Shadows. Let's talk about that for a few minutes, then we can go on to the mission.
Okay.
I'm on a. It's a very hard subject, and it's really not about childhood abuse, sexual abuse. It's about how the men that went through it and grew up as adults, how they coped with that without telling anybody for 40, sometimes 48 years, 50 years. And then finally, they can't stand the pain anymore, and they've been usually quelling the pain with some sort of abuse to themselves, self-inflicted with alcohol or drugs or all kinds of things, gambling, promiscuity. They anyway, they destroy themselves because they hate themselves, and that is the hardest part to convince somebody out there. Oh, get over it. You know, the little boy says, my teacher's abusing me. Be quiet, we don't believe you, and that's the hardest part.
Now, did this come to you? Did you go to it? How did you?
Both.
You go ahead.
Yeah. How does this fall into your lap?
The Monterey County Rape Crisis Center wanted a PSA to let the community know that they had one of the few groups in the countries that was dealing with this. There were less than 40 at the time. Supposedly still are less than 40. And they contacted us, they had vetted us, but also we were kind of known in the community, so they contacted us to make this PSA, and we did it for no money basically. I mean, we charge them because we can't work for free, but we can do it a lot less than we would for a major client. And so anyway, we did the PSA, and during the making of the PSA, there was a discussion among several of the people, including the Claire Montero, the director of the center, that that there really needed to be a film about the subject matter. So it got funded. I won't go into the details of that because it's more complex and we still don't totally understand it. But anyway, it got funded, and we ended up traveling, back and forth to LA a lot to meet our central character, Glenn, who we followed during the course of the film, and then we went back to New York, and in the process interviewed quite a few other men who were abused as children, many of whom have established themselves in careers. Ellen Martin, who was an anchor here at KSBW years ago and is now an anchor at KPIX in San Francisco, is one of the men represented in the film. And then of course the sheriff that you saw there, he's retired now, but he was very well known local.
And Alan Martin had never discussed it ever out of
the first time he talked about it was with us on film.
Yeah, it was the first time.
Did you have trepidation to do this?
Oh, yes. Heavens, yes.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, like a dog going to the vet.
Yeah.
It just was so hard and so painful. After our first couple of interviews, we said, how can we do this? How can we make this? And Steve said, we have to understand it. That's what we have to make an audience do.
So you have to bring them through catharsis, basically.
Yes, you see what happens when you don't talk about it.
Yeah, the problem with childhood sexual abuse is that it's going to keep happening as long as people ignore it, and so we felt an obligation really to make a film. A palatable, a film that people can watch. In other words, it's not a scary film to watch. It's actually, everybody who's seen it, and we've had quite a few screenings of it at festivals and conventions and things like that. Everybody who's seen it has responded in a positive way to it, saying that they were glad that they saw it and that they learned a lot from it, that the enlightenment is something that people.
Every parent should see that.
Yeah, every
film.
teacher should see it, every cop should see it.
So it will play on PBS when, and then let's quickly move on.
Oh, okay. It will play next Wednesday, which is the 26th at 10 p.m. And it will repeat sometimes at 4 in the morning.
And this is on PBS?
On PBS.
Yes.
Well, it's being premiered on KQED in San Francisco, and then they are presenting it nationally. So it will show all throughout the country.
Yes, and right now we do have some carriage reports. We know we're in like 26 states now, which we could never have done on our own, and about 130 stations, PBS stations throughout the country have picked it up. So, and I'm still getting carriage reports, so that means there'll be more.
So this is
Yeah.
big. What's next? I want to make sure that we have this in.
Okay, well, I also want to say Island of Time also went up this month
Oh.
to NETA, which is National Educational Television Association, which is a distributor to PBS. It actually already played once on PBS, and it's going to go up again and be available again.
In fact, we got an email from a college in Kentucky that missed it.
Yeah, they missed
when it was-
downloading it, and they wanted
they want to show it as a.
Well, it's like I say, it's a lovely film. I also would be remiss to, as executive director of Museum of Monterey, in conjunction with Arts Habitat, that I will be proudly presenting you on stage your lecture. When is this? The 20?
That's on the 20.
It's the day before our
25th
screening.
then.
So,
The 25th. You'll be live at the Museum of Monterey, and anybody out there.
And we will be showing clips from all of the films we've just talked
Yeah,
about.
so I'm very excited that this will be going on, and we'll have, again, I recommend that everybody come. This has been a fabulous series. Working with Arts Habitat has been a thrill. What a wonderful organization.
And you have the perfect venue for that sort of presentation with the theater there.
At the museum.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful series. We're going to. The Arts Habitat we're going to be in the next segment, so I'm very happy to have them. And so what's next? We have, just to quickly wrap it up because we're running down. But
We have so many ideas, but we're right now, to tell you the truth, we've been working on this so hard, and the media has sort of brought us to a halt. But to tell you the truth, there's one film that Steve and I have talked about that we would love to make, would be Mel Mason's story. The guy here.
Mel Mason, yeah.
He's a wonder to me, and what he does, where he's been, what he knows, and how much he cares about the African American community is incredible, and I don't think people know that.
And he's a fabulous talker.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, we just made a film for him called Village Project. So that they're used a 10-minute film
He
about.
has such a sense of humor, and he does so much stuff for the community. I really wish we could get that funded.
Okay, I'm going to say goodbye.
Okay.
Steve Rosen, Terri DeBono, Macaneva Productions. This is Mark Baer for YourTown television program.